After a fierce argument with my husband over his white moonlight, I miscarried. The very next day, while I was resting at home, the police arrived and took me away on suspicion of hit and run. Yet at the exact time of the accident, I was lying on an operating table undergoing a miscarriage procedure. The person who identified me as the culprit was the husband I had loved for years. Upon learning this truth, I lost all hope in him and proposed divorce. So my husband personally testified that I was the one who hit someone and fled? Yes. The driver was wearing a mask, so the surveillance didn't capture a clear face, but it was clearly a woman. We traced the vehicle to your husband and questioned him. He stated that you were driving it that day. I wasn't the one driving. Do you have proof? At the time of the accident, I was at the city hospital undergoing a miscarriage procedure. The two officers sitting across from me fell silent. One of them stepped out for more than 10 minutes and then returned. We've verified your statement. You're free to go. Thank you for your cooperation. Officers, although the car is registered in my husband's name, he gave it to his friend Lila right after buying it. You can investigate her. We will. Thank you for the lead. Stepping out of the police station, I was enveloped in warm sunlight, yet I felt only a bone-deep chill. I took a taxi home, locked myself in my room, and drew the curtains tight until the space was pitch black. Wrapped in a blanket, I curled up in the corner. Absolute darkness and silence made me feel as though I were the only person left in the world, no one could hurt me, and that brought me profound peace. After an unknown amount of time, the door opened. Ethan strode in and yanked the curtains apart. The light was blinding. I squeezed my eyes shut and heard his angry voice. What did you tell the police? Why did they take Lila away? I opened my eyes, looked up at him, and answered without any emotion. I simply told them you had already given the car to Lila. Ethan grew even angrier. You'll ruin Lila's life. Go to the station right now, confess, and say you falsely accused her to evade responsibility. Have you ever considered what would happen to me if I took the blame? Ethan paused, his expression uneasy. I'll compensate the victims and ensure they drop the charges. You'll be fine. If I'd be fine, why are you so frantic now that Lila is detained? Ethan was speechless. I turned my gaze to the clear blue sky outside. Ethan, let's divorce. Divorce? Just because I asked you to take the blame for Lila? Isn't that reason enough? After a long silence, Ethan said only, I won't agree to a divorce. Your agreement doesn't matter. I'm simply informing you. I closed my eyes. I need to rest. You're disturbing me. Please leave. Seeing me refuse to engage, Ethan left the room fuming. Dinner was ready. Aunt, the housekeeper, knocked gently. Madam, dinner is served. Please come down and eat something. Your health is the most important thing. No matter what happens. Before she finished, I opened the door from inside. Aunt froze. I opened it just like that? In the past, whenever Sir and Madam argued, Madam would lock herself in and sulk, refusing all persuasion. Today Aunt had only meant to offer a gentle word, yet the door opened immediately. Aunt stood motionless. I said, didn't you say dinner is ready? Let's go. Oh, yes, of course. She stepped aside, and I walked downstairs first. The table was set, but Ethan was absent, clearly busy trying to get Lila released. Looking at the appetizing meal before me, I realized how foolish I had been in the past, losing my appetite over arguments with Ethan. I ate heartily and then returned to my room to rest. When I woke up, Ethan's side of the bed was untouched. He hadn't come home. He had, however, sent me a message, prepare a suit for me. My assistant will pick it up. In the past, I took any post-argument contact from Ethan as a sign of reconciliation and would comfort myself. Now I refuse to deceive myself. Ethan simply never cared about my feelings, which was why he could issue orders without hesitation even after a fight. As I left the house, Ethan's assistant arrived. Good morning, madam. Please give me Ethan's suit. Just go upstairs and pick anyone. I have things to do. The assistant watched me leave, hesitated, then called Ethan. Ethan, Madam didn't prepare anything. She told me to grab any suit. Do you have preferences? Ethan had spent the night negotiating with the victims' families and dining with connections. He finally got Lila released after midnight, stayed with her for hours, and went straight to the office in the morning. Hearing the report, Ethan rubbed his temples irritably. Put her on the phone. Madam has already left. Left? Where? I don't know. She didn't say. Forget it. Just bring any suit to the office. Yes, Ethan. I went to the Jiang family estate to see Grandpa Edward. As soon as I saw him, I said, Grandpa, I want a divorce. What has that rascal done now? I'll summon him to apologize at once. No need, Grandpa. It's over between us. Grandpa Edward was silent for a long time. Is there truly no way back? I nodded firmly. He sighed. I'll help you. Thank you, Grandpa. I probably won't have many chances to visit again. Please take care of yourself. In the living room, Veronica sat on the sofa. Seeing me, she tossed her pet dog's clothes at my feet. Go wash Nikki's outfit. I picked up the clothes and placed them on the sofa arm. I've always wanted to say you're a spiteful, malicious mother-in-law who only asserts her ridiculous authority by tormenting me. It's truly repulsive. Veronica trembled with rage, pointing at me. How dare you speak to me like that? You need to be taught a lesson. She advanced and raised her hand to strike. I seized her wrist and flung her arm away. Caught off guard, she fell to the floor. I looked down at her. No wonder you love that dog so much, you're no different from it now. Uninterested in her reaction, I left the Jiang estate. Helped up by the maids, Veronica called Ethan in a fury but burst into tears the moment he answered. Ethan, Serena insulted me and pushed me down. She left without a single apology. I'm her elder, she's gone too far. I understand. I'll make her apologize. After hanging up, Ethan called me repeatedly. When I didn't answer, he grabbed his coat and stormed out. When Ethan arrived home, I was having Aunt pack my things. The moment he saw me, he snapped, Serena, there's a limit to your tantrums. Running to Grandpa about divorce and defying my mother. I ignored him, picked up the divorce agreement from the nightstand, and handed it over. Grandpa must have spoken to you. Read it. Sign if you have no objections. Seeing the words divorce agreement, Ethan refused to take it. The matter with Lila is settled. Stop this nonsense, tell Grandpa we're not divorcing, and apologize to my mother. I'm not throwing a tantrum. Sign it quickly and don't waste my time. Stung by the loss of face, Ethan snatched the papers, signed them, and flung them onto the bed. Serena, I'll wait for the day you regret this and come begging. I picked up the signed agreement and continued packing. Since it's signed, let's go to the Civil Affairs Bureau now to file. You're unbelievable, Serena. Ethan stormed out, slamming the door so hard it shook. Aunt, I've called movers. When they arrive, please supervise the packing of my belongings. Of course, madam. After instructing Aunt, I caught up with Ethan. Left alone, Aunt sighed, who would end up regretting this remained to be seen. Madam was never unreasonable. In all these years, no matter how fierce the arguments, she had never mentioned divorce. Now that she had, she must be utterly heartbroken. Yet Sir still treated it as a tantrum and deliberately opposed her. After completing the paperwork at the Civil Affairs Bureau, Ethan left without a word. I took a taxi back to our marital home. The movers had already packed and loaded my belongings. There was no need for me to go inside. Aunt stood at the door. I bid her farewell, Aunt, thank you for taking care of me all these years. I'm leaving. You don't need to thank me, it was my duty. From now on, please take good care of yourself. Don't skip meals when you're upset, it harms your health. I know. I won't anymore. At my own home, the movers placed everything as I asked and left. This property was the only thing my parents left me. I hadn't lived here much since Grandma passed, but I had it cleaned regularly and it was always ready. Ethan went straight to the office after the bureau. Returning home for dinner and not seeing me, he assumed I was sulking in my room as usual and said nothing. He ate, went to the study, and slept there. Let her sulk, he would see how long I could keep it up this time. Days passed without seeing me or receiving a single message. Ethan finally sensed something was wrong. Trying to reach me, he discovered I had blocked him on every platform. He called Aunt. Put Serena on the phone. Hearing his tone, Aunt asked cautiously, "Madam moved out several days ago. Didn't you know?" Ethan was stunned, he truly hadn't known. When did she move? The same day you signed the divorce agreement. Did she say where? Madam didn't mention it. Hanging up, Ethan tried everyone else but found no leads. Finally remembering the house my parents left me, he went there, rang the bell repeatedly, and pounded on the door, shouting my name. Annoyed by the noise, a neighbor opened her door. "Stop banging. The young lady who lives here left with a suitcase yesterday and hasn't returned. Do you know where she went? We're not close. Why would she tell me?" The neighbor shut her door. Unable to find me here, Ethan reluctantly called the police. When the police called, I had just affixed the ultrasound image I had cut from the report onto a rebirth stone at Mount Kailash. Everyone else's child has photos, mine had none. I would never know what my child would have looked like, boy or girl. I found an empty spot among the many photos and placed mine there. I hoped the others would watch over my child, keeping it from getting lost or lonely. After the police confirmed my safety, I asked them not to disclose my whereabouts. Ethan learned only that I was safe, not where I was. He stationed people outside my building every day, waiting for me to appear. Soon after I returned home, Ethan arrived. Seeing him at the door, I blocked the entrance. "What are you doing here? You've sulked long enough. Come home with me. I'm serious about the divorce. All this drama just to make me coax you, right? I came personally. Enough is enough. Leave. Don't come again. We'll meet at the bureau when the cooling-off period ends." I shut the door, unwilling to waste more words. I thought I wouldn't see Ethan again until the cooling-off period ended, but a few days later we crossed paths. My cousin, too drunk to go home, called me to pick her up from a club. Though I rarely interacted with elders, I got along well with my cousin. As I was leaving with her, the neighboring private room emptied. Everyone was familiar, except one young woman I didn't recognize. I tried to slip back unnoticed, but as I retreated, my eyes met Lila's. What terrible luck. The moment she saw me, Lila called out loudly, "Serena." Everyone turned to look. I ignored her and supported my cousin to leave, but she persisted. "Ethan said you were unwell and resting at home. What are you doing here? What's wrong with me being here? A hit-and-run fugitive like you is here too." Lila was speechless and looked desperately at Ethan. Ethan immediately defended her. "Serena, apologize to Lila." "Apologize, my ass, idiot." I hurried past them with my cousin. My response shocked everyone into silence. The young woman was Ryan's new girlfriend, Zoe. She tugged Ryan's sleeve and whispered, "Who is she?" Ryan whispered back, "Ethan's wife." Zoe's eyes blazed at Ethan. "Scumbag. You're married and still." Ryan covered her mouth and apologized. "Ethan, she's young and doesn't understand. Please don't take offense." Zoe struggled, mumbling. Afraid she'd say more, Ryan half carried her away. After that incident, Ethan and I didn't meet again until the cooling-off period ended. To ensure he would show up, I unblocked him the night before and sent, "Tomorrow 9 a.m. at the Civil Affairs Bureau. I don't want to trouble Grandpa again." Then I blocked him once more. The next morning, I arrived early and waited over 10 minutes for Ethan. Many couples were divorcing, we had to take a number in queue. When our number was called, I stood. Ethan grabbed my arm. Serena, it's not too late to change your mind. If we divorce, I will never take you back. I seized his hand and pulled him up. Stop talking nonsense. Hurry, or we'll lose our turn and have to queue again. The divorce was finalized quickly. Holding the certificate, we walked out one after the other. Ethan called, "Where are you going?" "I'll drive you." A month ago, when we filed, he left without a word. Now that we were divorced, he offered a ride. The irony was bitter. I turned to him. "Ethan, thank you. From now on, I'll walk my own path." Watching me walk away without hesitation, Ethan finally accepted that I truly wanted nothing more to do with him. He called Ryan, "Come drink with me." Drinking in broad daylight? Just say you're coming. Of course, send the address. Ryan was on a date with Zoe and brought her along. Entering, they saw Ethan downing drinks. Ryan sat beside him. "What happened to make you drink like this in the middle of the day?" He noticed a red booklet on the table and picked it up. "Your marriage certificate? Why is it here?" Ethan slammed his glass down, splashing liquor. "Divorce certificate." Ryan looked closely and saw Ethan's solo photo. His expression turned serious. "You and Serena are divorced? Why?" "Last month Lila committed hit and run. I asked Serena to take the blame." Ryan pressed his lips together. "Ethan, that was truly wrong of you. Lila had been drinking. If caught, the consequences would be severe. Serena hadn't, so I asked her to cover for her." Zoe, listening nearby, erupted in anger and splashed her drink in Ethan's face. Ryan's eyes widened. He hurriedly grabbed tissues. "Ethan, are you okay?" Ethan took the tissues and began wiping. Just as he was about to lash out, Zoe dropped a bombshell. "You actually made that sister take the blame for your mistress. No wonder she aborted your child." Ethan froze, staring at Zoe. Knowing Zoe interned in the obstetrics department at the city hospital, Ryan asked, "You mean Ethan's wife went to the city hospital for an abortion?" "Yes. I thought it strange, she was overjoyed the first day when pregnancy was confirmed, yet came for an abortion the next. Now I understand." Zoe glared at Ethan. "With a husband like you, who would want to bear your child?" Ethan stood, seized Zoe's shoulders, eyes red. "When did she terminate the pregnancy?" Ryan tried to pry his hands away. "Ethan, calm down. Let's talk properly." Zoe shoved him hard, pushing him onto the sofa. "Now you want to know? Where were you before?" Ryan, still holding Ethan, nearly fell too but let go in time and steadied himself. He turned to Zoe, "I know you're angry, but calm down. Let's clarify everything first." Zoe rolled her eyes at Ethan. "That sister tested positive on the 10th of last month and had the procedure on the 11th. After Zoe spoke, Ethan slapped himself hard. The sharp sound rang out. As he raised his hand for another, Ryan grabbed it. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Ethan bowed his head, clutching his hair. "On the 11th she came to the office, saw Lila, and we argued. I didn't know she was pregnant. If I had, I never would have fought with her." Zoe struck again. "What's the use of pretending to be devoted now? The child is gone, the marriage is over, you deserve it." Ryan said sternly, "Ethan is suffering enough. Say less." Though stern, Ryan silently pleaded with clasped hands, "Ancestor, please stop provoking him." Not wanting Ryan to be caught in the middle, Zoe muttered scumbag once more and left. Ryan patted Ethan's shoulder. "If you can't let Serena go, go explain everything and beg her forgiveness. Drinking and blaming yourself here won't help." "You're right. I'll find her." Ethan, not yet drunk, stood and left. Watching him get into the car, Ryan told the assistant, "Keep an eye on him. Don't let anything happen." The assistant nodded. Once the car left, Ryan immediately called Zoe to smooth things over. After Ethan's scene, he dared not risk any misunderstanding with her. Opening the door, a strong smell of alcohol hit me. I instinctively frowned and covered my nose. Seeing Ethan, my frown deepened. "What are you doing here?" Ethan's eyes were red, his voice hoarse. "Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant? Why didn't you tell me about the abortion? How did you find out?" Ethan persisted, "Why didn't you tell me?" As I began to answer, I noticed the neighbor's door cracked open. I stepped aside. "Come in and we'll talk." Ethan entered. I closed the door and met his pained gaze. I walked past him to the living room sofa. "And Saturday, the day I confirmed the pregnancy at the hospital, I messaged you to come home early because I had something to tell you. But you didn't come home. The next day I went to your office to tell you I was pregnant, but I saw you embracing Lila. After our argument I started home, but pain began in my abdomen. I asked the driver to take me to the hospital. The doctor said the fetal heartbeat had stopped and an abortion was necessary. I never intended to lose the child, I wanted desperately to keep it, but I couldn't. Speaking of the baby, I couldn't hold back tears, they fell onto my hands. Ethan knelt before me, grasping my hands. He cried too, our tears mingled on my skin, indistinguishable. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have argued, shouldn't have divorced you out of spite, and never should have asked you to take the blame for Lila. Please forgive me. Let's remarry. I promise I'll treat you well from now on and never make you angry or hurt you again." I withdrew my hands and shook my head. "You agreed to divorce because Grandpa threatened your inheritance, right? Between Lila and me, you chose Lila. Between the inheritance and me, you chose the inheritance. In your heart, something always matters more than I do." "No. I agreed only because you kept insisting on divorce and I was angry, so I did it out of spite. As for Lila, I stopped loving her long ago. It's you I love. It doesn't matter now. We're completely over. Don't come looking for me again. I've begun a new life and said goodbye to the old Serena forever." Saying goodbye to the old Serena meant I no longer loved Ethan. 10 years ago, my parents and I were in an accident. I was the only survivor. No relatives wanted to care for me. My grandmother rushed from the countryside, a tiny, frail old woman. She fed me, cleaned me, turned me daily to prevent bedsores, and sweated profusely each time. She nursed me back to health but grew even thinner, skin and bones. On the day I was discharged, she wouldn't let me carry anything and loaded herself with bags. Crossing the road, she didn't see the car and was hit. I couldn't pull her tiny body up and sobbed hysterically. Through tear-blurred eyes, a figure in school uniform appeared, Ethan. He scooped up Grandma and ran into the hospital. His school jacket, tied around his waist, fell. He didn't stop to retrieve it. I picked it up and followed, but he was already gone. Grandma survived. I kept that jacket and never forgot him. On the first day of the college entrance exam, I arrived at the venue only to realize I had lost my pencil for filling in the answer sheet. I panicked, turning in circles. Then he appeared and handed me a pencil. "Classmate, I saw your pencil drop. You walked so fast I almost couldn't catch up." I looked up gratefully, recognized him, and forgot to reply. Someone shouted, "Ethan, hurry or you'll be late." He pressed the pencil into my hand. "Good luck on the exam. Be more careful next time, not everyone you meet will be as kind as me." His running figure overlapped with the one from the hospital entrance that day. My heart skipped a beat. After the exams, I obtained Ethan's Facebook through a friend from number 1 high school. After adding him, I saw he was heading to Hua University. I made it my first choice. When acceptances came out, Ethan posted, "Hua University, here comes your young master." We were both admitted to Hua University. I was secretly overjoyed for ages, fantasizing about reuniting on campus. But after classes began, I learned he had come for Lila. Lila had been accepted the previous year, but Ethan's scores weren't high enough, so he repeated a year to join her. By then, Lila already had a boyfriend. Ethan was heartbroken. I secretly rejoiced. It was easy to get to know someone at university. Gradually, Ethan and I became friends. Once, while we were together, we ran into Lila. She asked if I was his girlfriend. He said yes. And just like that, we started dating. I was happy during our relationship, until we married. His mother looked down on my background and constantly tormented me, but I endured it for him. In our second year of marriage, Lila divorced and began seeking Ethan out frequently. Fearing they would rekindle their old flame, I forbade contact with her, but he refused. We argued constantly over Lila until, little by little, our love was quarreled away. Eventually, we reached the point of divorce. Ethan understood the implication but chose to avoid it. Rest well. We'll take our time. I'll work hard to earn your forgiveness. Afterward, Ethan tried to win me back, but nothing moved me. He persisted until I began dating someone new. Upon hearing the news, Ethan locked himself in his room, drank heavily, and wept when drunk. Aunt heard the commotion and stood outside the door for a while, worried he might harm himself. She had said it was unclear who would regret it. Now it was clear, it was Sir who regretted, not Madam.